So we are being recorded. Just want to make sure that everybody understands that. So some housekeeping: raise questions via the chat window. And also during the sharing part, where we bring stories from the front, please ask through the chat to be able to speak. So once again, the slide is the focus. What is data governance? People, processes, and technology, but most importantly, people and processes to manage the company's critical data assets, and a bunch of things about how you do that. So today we're going to talk about data quality management. And first of all, well, why is data quality important? Then we're going to talk about what I call the facets of data quality. You're going to see a lot of, if you do research out on the web, you're going to see a lot of different metrics, a lot of different things that you're measuring. I've taken a set that, quite frankly, was from Gartner because I thought it was a pretty good set. The activities: how do you do data quality, and the roles and the responsibilities. So let's start out. Why is data quality important? So that you can make the correct decisions. What you want to avoid are metrics that can't be calculated because the data are unavailable. Also, issues in putting the data together. When you try to get data from one place and data from another place and try to get it together, you may have quality issues because you just can't do it. The other thing about data quality that makes it important is you're trying to avoid having spotty metrics. You may see one area of the business doing better than everybody else or doing worse than everybody else, just because they're more diligent in entering the data and there's more data available for that area. Why is data quality important? Well, so you can do the right thing. Business transaction, patient care, customer service, whatever service your company provides, services to members. You really want to avoid marketing snafus. And, it's important that you're not sending things to the wrong people. It could rub people the wrong way. Waste and corrections are things to avoid. And of course, all of that could lead to lost opportunities for your business and for your customers. So why else is data quality important? So that you can set the correct strategy. You need to know where your troubled spots are. You need to know where unfulfilled needs are. And you need to know how your business is changing. Is one product or service that you're providing decreasing? Another one is increasing. So some quotes, a well-publicized snippet from IBM from 2016, where IBM found that poor data quality is costing US businesses $3.1 trillion annually. And, in healthcare, we have other things besides money that we're concerned about, and that is patient care and, understanding patient profiles, understanding research cohorts, and all of that figures in as well. MIT Sloan Management Review in 2017 found that between 15% and 25% of annual revenue is the cost of poor quality data. And then a very recent one by the Gartner Group shows poor data quality costing mid-size enterprises. And of course, in this article, they had a definition of mid-size enterprises, but an average of $9.5 million annually. So data quality is important. And, depending on the source you look at, data quality is listed as being important for analytics and for decision support, but really, data quality is important for your source systems, right? So at HHC, our focus around data quality and all of data governance is not to have the data right in our data warehouse. It's to have our data right in the source system. And with data quality, what you need to do is find out where that bad data is coming from and then fix it. And we'll go over that in a moment. But I want to talk about the facets of data quality. Again, this list, this was Gartner's list. If you go to the Data Management Association, you'll get a different list. If you go anywhere else to Data Governance Professionals Organization, you'll get a different list. But this is a list that I thought was manageable and should cover just about everything you could want to do for data. So this first group of facets deal with data availability and data connectivity. So the first one is accessibility to the data. Can you actually get to it and integrate it into your processes? I have a terrific example, and I've been avoiding using specific examples from Hartford Healthcare, but this one is just too classic to pass up. We are trying to measure the time that it takes from a patient to have a diagnostic breast image to the time it takes the biopsy. So we're trying to shorten that time, because when a patient has a positive diagnostic image, that patient is very nervous, and we're trying to reduce the amount of time it takes from the time that a patient has the diagnosis to the time the patient has the biopsy, where the lump in the breast is being removed. And this is specifically for our breast disease management team. And one of the things that we found is an accessibility issue. And that is that we find patients that have a number of diagnostic images, and that same patient will have a number of biopsies. But there's just no way, there's nothing in between them that say, this biopsy was done as a result of this diagnosis. And so, it sort of becomes an accessibility issue, because it's really tough to get that data and integrate it. And, we're looking at ways that we can do this. Second thing is consistency. Fields that are in multiple systems, are they similarly represented and structured? If one thing is a date and another thing is a date time, a timestamp, you have a consistency issue there. It's not necessarily something that you can't get around, but it's just something that you need to monitor and at least need to know. Uniqueness, my example about diagnostic images and biopsies, kind of falls into this one as well, because uniqueness is, can the data be easily identified? Is it easy to tell when you have something as opposed to another thing? So, there is a uniqueness issue in that we have a bunch of diagnostic images, and they're unique. They're listed. There are ways to find out which one is which, and also with the biopsies. But it's just very difficult to tell which cancer case they both belong to, so that we can sequence them. Finally, under availability is timeliness. If the use case for your data, if you want to be tracking this in near real time or track it on a daily basis, and the data are 6 months behind, as it might be the case with a registry or with data that we send out for value-added analysis, then you have to rethink what you're going to do with that data. There's also there's also some facets that have to do with the way that data are captured. The first one and the most obvious one is completeness. Are important fields missing from a lot of instances? Or are there instances missing? If for every procedure you're expecting a diagnosis, do you have that? Or are there diagnoses missing? Are there procedures missing? Do you have an encounter that implies a procedure, but you don't have the procedure? So, completeness is part of that. And also, when we're talking about completeness, we're talking about is the field being captured. So another thing that we have to contend with is that we do have fields for cancer staging, discrete fields, but they are not being captured as discrete. The chart is perfectly fine. There's no issue with the patient, but having that data discrete is not does not have a high level of completeness. Precision. If you're looking for charges, based upon individual line items in your transaction. So, is the purchase order or the invoice capturing the total amount, or is it capturing at a line item level? So, are the data collected at the right level? If you're getting invoices from one of your suppliers and it's just a one number, then you're not going to be able to do an analysis on the items that are in that invoice. The other thing with precision, when we get down to a field level, is are you collecting it with the correct numerical precision? Is it an approximate, or is it down to 3 decimal places? So something to look at. And the next one is validity. So data conforms to business rules. And the one that I love to use is if somebody's date of birth is in 2043 and not 1943, then you have a validity issue. There are a lot of other rules that you can apply. For example, in my business, and probably in a lot of yours as well, providers have an NPI. And the NPI is a number with exactly 10 digits. It is a number that begins with a 1 or a 2. And this is how CMS defines the NPI. So that gives you a rule that you can check the field and validate that this number is a valid NPI. There's another one from Gartner that always troubles me. I see this a lot: accuracy. Data reflects the reality. And I always have a problem with accuracy, because in order to do that, you have to compare it to some other data set. And if you're doing that, well, then why don't you just use the data from that data set that you're relying on a lot more than the one that you're checking? But, accuracy could be something where you're cross-checking. For example, a lot of systems use address validators, and this assures the accuracy of an address when a customer is on the phone and has a pretty bad cell signal, and you think you've captured the address right. An address validator will help with the accuracy. So why do you have data quality issues? First of all, and I'm going to get into this later, data quality might not be bad. It just might mean that, well, it's really not suitable for use for this particular use case. But the reasons for data quality issues are, first of all, architecture. the system either isn't designed to capture what you're looking for or at the level that you need it, because, and again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily that somebody missed it, but it just is. Data from two systems are architected differently. Two systems that kind of evolve separately so that each system might have an identifier for a customer, but those identifiers are not necessarily the same number. So, now you have an accessibility issue. You have something to do, which is called master data management, before you can start using that data from the two systems. The other reason for data quality issues, workflow. If there are variations in the workflow, you could find a lot of data over here, but not a lot of data over there. You can find that the data is more accurate in one place, but not in another, or, well, not accurate per the definition, but, more complete, more valid. A lot of times where you get data quality issues, from my experience, is people are typing data that they should be selecting from a list. So most systems will allow you to customize the form, and you could say, okay, I don't want people to type this data in anymore. I want people to select it from this particular list. And a lot of errors are just plain keying errors. I am in a rush, and I need to type this data, and I type the data, but I swap two numbers, or I miss a number or something. And in parentheses, I put in vitals. One of the things that I've always thought was a place where EHRs and healthcare IT, there's still room for improvement, is when I go for a visit with a provider, and the provider hooks up a machine that has a blood pressure cuff with a heart monitor and an oximeter. And then when that machine is done with me, the provider has to read the numbers off the machine and then type it into the EHR. Well, I think we're getting to an age where data is not necessarily created by people anymore. And I think we're going to be seeing more and more where the machines can send the data without human intervention. And that'll save people time, and that'll also increase accuracy. The other reason that I've seen for data quality issues is training. People don't understand how that data is being used downstream and why quality data is important. And I often say that some of the people, when you're talking about data literacy and you're talking about training, some of the people who have the least amount of training are those who have the most contact with the sources of data. So the people who are performing the registrations, the people who are answering the phone, this is where your data is being sourced into your system. The person asks the patient for a date of birth, again, mishears it, types it in incorrectly, but that's okay, because it will get this person through, it'll get the patient seen. Likewise with an order, it's important to get the order number correct, right? The number of the part that, or the product that the customer is ordering. It's important to get the delivery address correct, but there may be other things, such as commodity codes and other pieces of data that aren't necessarily required to get the product shipped out, that somebody may have been asked to capture, but without an understanding of the downstream uses of this data, the person may not think that it's all that important, because it's not really required to get the product shipped. So training issues are a third reason for data quality issues. So why do we manage data quality? And I said a second ago that, a quality issue is not necessarily a bad thing, but it may mean that you can't do something with the data. If you have data from two different systems that are evolving on two different planes, the data will work fine for the purposes of those systems, but there might be some things that you just can't do with the data without taking other steps first. And, it comes down to, you have to talk to your data stakeholders. You have to talk to your information governors and say, Mr. Information Governor, I know you want to get this kind of insight out of this data, but we just don't capture it in that manner. So, I think probably a large part of data quality is knowing what you can do with the data and what you can't do with the data. Really, you need to get that back to your data stakeholders so that they understand this thoroughly. And the second reason to manage is to know which actions to take. Some things like date of birth in healthcare are absolutely critical. You cannot have a wrong date of birth. But the thing is, when you're looking at an issue with the data, if you're looking at a dashboard and some vice president says, this just doesn't look right. Well, you're going to do some root cause analysis, and you may find that it doesn't look right because of data completeness or data validity or some kind of hook that doesn't exist between two pieces of data. So all these instances are dropped. And as you then perform root cause analysis to find out where that quality issue came from, it could very well be in the dashboard itself that this quality issue is showing up. It could be in the data warehouse. It could be in the extract, transform, and load processes that put the data into the warehouse. It could be in the manner that jobs in the source system are processing the data, or it could be something that it traces back to the people who are entering the data. And you kind of hope that it's it's either the ETL or it's the people that are entering the data. But if the data are that important, then maybe it's worthwhile to get somebody to actually abstract it. If the data are not discrete, you might find it worthwhile, depending on the use of the data, to get somebody to abstract the data from a patient chart, to get somebody to do comparisons between one system and the other and create a crosswalk table. You may find that you want to change a workflow in a screen, right? Because you don't change a screen without changing the workflow, right? They go hand in hand. If you're changing somebody's workflow, you have to change the screen to match. If you're changing a screen, you are by definition changing somebody's workflow. You might want to look into application integration. And application integration could be a very good solution for a lot of data quality issues, especially if you have system A and system B and they're just not jiving. Well, where does the data come in first? If the data tends to come into system B first, then set up application integration to get that data over to system A. Maybe that data will never be used by system A, but when it is used, then it's already there. You'll have links between A and B, and you'll be able to now link that data together that previously could not be linked. So at this point, please check the chat and let's see if we have any questions. All right, it's been about 10 seconds. Let's go on, organization and activities. Oh, I'm sorry, I just saw chat pop up. Thank you, Meg. All right, thank you, folks. Yeah, it's good to have some kind of feedback. Silence doesn't necessarily mean good. So organization activities, how do you do data quality? And, we've seen this 5 times before. We have our data governance steering committee, we have our work streams. So we have a data quality work stream that is a place to escalate. And yes, I will be distributing the slide deck. The slide deck, as well as the recording, will be available on the website tomorrow morning I think it's by noon, Amy. You're on mute. I think you're trying to talk, but you're on mute. Yes. So tomorrow by noon. As we have been talking about for the past 5 months, the information governors are the folks who are probably most important in this, because it comes back down to the data domains. Every data field is part of a domain. Every domain has information governors, has an information governor that is accountable for the activities for that domain, and then data stewards, application stewards, and analytics stewards. And likewise with data quality, the information governors are going to probably be the ones who are able to identify the data quality issues, because that person is very close to the data. That person has seen the results when the data are not quite so good, and has seen the results when the data are great. So, rely on your information governors to tell you where the quality issues might stem. Now, the data quality work stream, and again, we've seen this slide with different text on it. This actually goes to Terry Michael, who I'm using these slides with her permission. But no man is an island, and I just give a lot of credit to Terry Michael and Mark Cesaro in every one of these meetings, and it's no different for this one. So the data quality work stream, one of their key roles, one of their decision rights, is to set and prioritize the data sets for profiling. And we're going to talk about profiling in a bit. And it's basically when there's a priority conflict, some issue with prioritizing what do we do first, or if there is an issue with, we know we have some key stakeholders who are concerned about the quality, and an information governor who is not quite as concerned. We as data governance professionals don't have to fight that battle. That's why we have the data quality work stream, to be able to escalate issues. And they will also approve the design of scorecards. Accountabilities incorporate data profiling into our standard system development lifecycle. Now, this is going to be in the future. If you're just starting with a data governance program, it's going to be in the future. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Work with the information governors to define what the quality thresholds are. What are the tolerances with the quality? When do we start raising the flags, ringing the bells? Any unresolved challenges then goes up to the steering committee. And of course, the as is the responsibility, the accountability of every work stream, it's to communicate and evangelize the program and make sure that people understand what it's about. So who are the players? So the steering committee, or the work stream, does all these things. Every work stream has a practice lead that tends to come from the technical area, somebody to kind of drive it. And the practice lead manages, coordinates the activities, provides best practices in education. The information governors should be the first line to prioritize data quality initiatives and mange remediation. I'll correct the spelling before I forward it on. The data stewards are the ones who are closest to the data. So while the information governor is accountable, because that's the role of the information governor, the data stewards and application stewards and analytics stewards, they are the closest with the data. They're working it most often. And so they're the ones who are probably going to be investigating, remediating, and monitoring data quality issues as directed from the information governor. And again, the problems can come in a number of places. It can come in the analytics system. It could come from the application, or it could come from the place that the data is entered. And so all three of those are represented here in the data application and analytics stewards. So how do you start this off? Well, you can't start this from scratch with a fresh system, because that's not what you have. You have systems that are already in place. You have data quality issues that are already occurring. You have talk around the water cooler about, hey, did you hear what happened? Our men's health program just sent marketing materials to 9 million women. So you already have established systems. Therefore, well, what do you do? Well, first of all, you come up with a definition of what does data quality mean for a particular domain. So if we're talking about a customer or a patient, what does quality data mean for that customer or patient? I think, one could say that it means that the name is correct, the date of birth is correct, the address is correct, but there may be some other attributes that are being collected. For example, in a customer relationship management system, you're probably going to have, the names of this person's spouse, the names of this person's children. You got to be careful, because if one of the kids got seriously injured in a car accident, you don't want to say, hey, how's Seth been? I heard Seth got a scholarship, and, person just got into an accident. So depending on the domain and what you're doing with the data, both in your day-to-day business and in the insights that you're trying to gain from the data, then for each domain, you need to know what data quality means. Step 2 is identify the metrics. And, when we're saying metrics, literally what we're trying to get is a report card. How do we know that the data are good? How do we know that the quality of the data is being maintained? How do we know that the change that we made last week is not affecting the quality of the data? So identify the metrics, as well as identify what are the important data elements that we want to follow. So employ profiling tools. For the past five sessions, I've talked about people, process, and technology, and I've always minimized the technology. Here, I'm not going to minimize the technology. Profiling and data quality tools are very important. And if you look at a number of sources, they will agree that the tools are very important in data quality. These are things that you could do with a team of 12 people taking 3 months, but the tools can do it in a matter of hours. And so you're going to want to, as a first step, profile your data to scan and kind of create a baseline for some of the easier facets of data quality. You then establish your benchmarks, establish your targets based upon that profile and the desired outcome. And then you monitor your progress. You continuously monitor the quality of that data. The other important thing to adjust remediation, the other important thing is you need to be able to provide a hotline, a helpline, something that where people can report suspected data. You really want to make it easy for people. You don't want them to say, oh, yeah, the data's junk, I'm not going to worry about this. You want to make it easy for people to report that there's some suspicious data somewhere. And really, that's step one. The first thing that you're going to want to do, when your information governor for your customer domain comes to you and says, all right, let's profile the customer data. Well, the first step is profiling. Like I said, you're going to want a tool to do this. What a profiling tool will do is it'll look for null values. And instantly, you have a baseline of your completeness. So if you find that 17% of your patient file doesn't have date of birth, well, you know you have a problem. The profiling tool will also be able to tell you how many unique values are in the data set for this particular data element. And this is something that you can do with a query, but if you have 1,750 data elements, you're going to have to issue 1,750 queries to do this. So what the tool will do is it will say, I have a gender field and there are 317 unique values. Okay, you have a problem. It can also say, I have a data set of 383,000 customers, and I have 317 unique customer numbers. You have another problem there, right? So, uniqueness, it depends on the nature of the field, whether a lot of unique is good or a lot of unique is bad. So something like a gender code, you want very few unique fields because you want them to reflect what's in the drop down. But for something like customer ID, you want to find that and see that it's 100% unique, right? You don't want two customer records that have the same ID. And it depends upon the field. The other thing that the profiling tools do is they look for related fields. And this is an accessibility thing. These tools, once you profile data set A, and then you set about and profile data set B, these tools will actually say, there is a CID field in system A and a cust ID field in system B. And, I can't relate them too well based upon the name. But what I will tell you is that there is 80% of CID is in common with cust ID in these two systems. And this is very, very valuable because, when I talk about data warehousing and data lakes, I talk about data discovery, right? Every time you have a new set of data, you need to discover about it. And this kind of capability gives you very, very rapidly some intelligence on that data. And it's very valuable. When you start out profiling, you're going to be profiling your existing systems, right? You do have 317,000 customers in the customer database. You have 5.7 million patients in your patient database. You have, 184,000 products in your product database. You have, 5 million items in your item database, right? So you're going to be profiling existing systems as you get started. But ideally, in the next phase, when you're done with that, you will have a relationship with your information governor such that when a new system comes in, that new system should start going through the data governance process, right? You should get with your information governor and, that new system, whatever it's doing for you, part of what it's doing is it's giving you data. So data governance should be in on the point that systems are being evaluated. When you have a new system, my suggestion is start profiling early, because the profiling, especially when you have a smaller data set, really doesn't take a lot of time or effort or resources. And you can start right away ensuring that data are being captured correctly. And you can identify problem areas where somebody doesn't understand quite how to capture it, or, oh, we forgot to turn on the system configuration that does this to the data that we really, really need. Okay, so the profiling capability of a tool is going to be very, very important. And then step 2 is these tools will allow you to express rules in English and then be able to translate them to code such that you can execute on that code. So I'm going to go back and talk about NPI. People are keying in a provider's NPI number, and we want to make sure it's accurate because it is, per CMS definition, a 10-digit number that begins with a 1 or a 2. So you can now take that rule and in the tool program to make sure that this is 10 digits that begin with a 1 or a 2. Again, give your consumers a way to report the suspicious data. You can set your red, yellow, green limits, and then publish regular reports to your DQ team and information governors, your DQ WorkStream, maybe a monthly summary to the Data Governance Steering Committee. So, with the tools, like I said, you can take English rules and translate them. And some of the tools actually have an attempt at AI, where simpler rules could be translated automatically. Type in the rule, it will, in such a way that the system can figure out what it is you're talking about and actually incorporate that rule into the data quality tool. So I have just one screenshot from a particular unnamed data quality tool. And you could see that we have on the right, we have the report card. We have green, yellow, and red. When we look at the red, we have a particular field that is only populated 4.92% of the time. However, it's address line 2. So this was actually part of our proof of concept. Address line 2 is probably not something that you want to monitor for quality. But if you look at the second line, we see that in the source staging table, right, where the column that says measured in, the NPI, we have 88.89% validity against the rule. So this is something that you might want to look at as well. So the ongoing process, once you have worked this out with your existing systems, and again, follow the 80-20 rule, do the most important systems first, and then do the most important systems after those. You're going to go crazy if you try to perform data quality in all 173 of your applications. The way to proactively monitor for data quality is to become involved in new system implementations and major upgrades. You need to get onto the project team. When you identify a new system that's coming in, find the data that's currently being monitored for quality. Now, you're going to do this not just for quality, but you're going to do this to assign domains to the data, to identify master data, to be able to capture metadata, to identify reference data, right? So this is all part of the continuum of data governance. But rather than applying data governance to what's already there, this is proactive data governance. Provide data governance at the point when the system is being considered. And when you do have another system, well, there's probably going to be an effect on the data quality overall, either positive or negative or neutral, for that particular field. Hopefully it's positive, with some, you're bringing in a system that will more accurately capture this data. When you're done identifying what you already have under your quality program, identify the new data that is being captured by the system, new data elements that you have not captured before. As appropriate, profile the system. And, when I say system, I've been talking a lot about applications, where people are directing and documenting their workflow through this application. But you could be purchasing a data source, or you could be receiving a data source from a partner, or, whatever this is, it could already be populated with data. And so it is a ripe candidate for profiling as soon as you can get a view of that data. And then continue to profile, to get a stable baseline. As more data is entered into this system, as more data is added to this industry database that you're getting data from, when there are changes to the data, run the profile again. And then roll this system into the existing program. it's going to be a new source that you might need to incorporate into your RCA. It might be a new source that you want to take the validity rules and apply them to this source. But, just make sure that you can bring it into the data quality program as soon as possible, and your customers will love you for it. So some lessons learned from HHC. Take a stepped approach. A lot of the literature really focuses on what I call the facets. Other people call the metrics, right? It's the discipline of, all right, we want to monitor the data for completeness. We want to monitor the data for validity. We want to monitor the data for accuracy. Don't start out with that. Start out with your important or your suspect data. And I'm saying it again, like I say at every session, look for the adverse event that was caused by data quality. And, start with those and slowly socialize the facets, because where you're eventually going to want to go is, you're going to want your information governor to say, hey, we're bringing in super system X. And, I want to make sure, I know it's collecting this data, and I want to make sure that that data is monitored for completeness, and I want to make sure that it's valid. And I want to make sure that we have some kind of integration so that we can report on this data in our analytics efforts, just like we can with system Y. So you eventually want to get there, but it's going to be a long road. By starting out with suspect data, you're going to show value quickly, and you're going to be able to justify the expense for that data quality system that you purchased. Keep the program fresh with new data and new facets. We have not gotten to this point yet. So this is me talking. But when there are no adverse events, when data quality is being monitored, when we take action every time data quality exceeds thresholds, people might start taking the program for granted. What do you mean? We don't have a data quality problem. Well, yeah, of course we don't have a data quality problem. We've taken a lot of effort to make sure we don't. So, keep the program, try to keep the program fresh. Keep the stakeholders and keep your senior leadership educated and up to date on it. And I guess, I could say the same for every other data governance activity. Keep it fresh and make sure people understand how the program is working for you. And with that, are there any other questions? Oh gosh, I've been talking and it's 5:55. Let's see. Meg, it is difficult to show the benefits of prevention. And, I talk about the adverse events, but that's only going to last for so long, because you'll implement this program as a result of an adverse event, but that memory is going to fade. And, well, yeah, hey, you rescued us from that, but what have you done for me lately? And again, find the ways to be able to prove the value of this, because when the data are good, when you've done your job perfectly, it doesn't mean that your job goes away. It means that, you can back off a little bit, but you still need to remain diligent. There are, I read the trade rags, I read Becker's, I read the Health IT News, and, you could find at least once a week an article related to some very newsworthy event that happened, and you can probably trace it back to data quality, and use that. say, hey, Mr. Vice President, that's not going to happen here as long as we keep monitoring this data. Any other questions? Any tales from the front? So I'm going to share my, thank you, Abigail. I'm going to share a tale that I have with, again, our Cancer Institute, because I'm embroiled in a data warehousing project with the Cancer Institute, trying to bring together data that has not yet been brought together in this way. And what we've been finding is that variation in workflow means that the cancer staging data is not well populated in the discrete fields. And I just want to make sure everybody knows, this is not a patient care issue. This is strictly an analytics issue, because in patient care, it's not just those discrete fields, it's the entire chart that is looked at. And the chart is perfectly good, but the data is sitting in notes and it's sitting in PDF files. It's not a patient care issue, but sitting in those PDF files doesn't do us much good when we're trying to perform analytics. So one of the things that we did was, okay, well, this data here, because of the completeness issue, is not suitable for what we're trying to do. And so what we did is we're looking at another data source. Every cancer program has to report to a national registry. And what we found is the people who are doing that reporting are actually abstracting from the entire chart and not just from the discrete fields. So they're pulling the data out of the chart and entering that data very accurately, very precisely, and very validly, because that's their jobs, into the cancer registry. So, we have said, okay, well, the data quality, because of the completeness issue, means we can't use this data, but we'll be able to use the data from the registry. And of course, it becomes a trade-off, because the data from the EHR, there's a completeness issue, but it's very timely. The data from the cancer registry is complete, but there's a timeliness issue, because by the time the cancer registrars catch up with the abstraction, it could be a little bit down the road. So we know we can't have a very quick turnaround on this data, but that's a part of data quality, where you may be trading off one facet for another facet, and something that you can look at. Meg, yeah, we have seen the problems with data security as well. I don't want to talk too much about our experience with data security, but the instance where we are using newsworthy incidents, and our director of data security is just very good at picking up on those newsworthy incidents and saying, here's why that's either not going to happen or will be more difficult to occur in our site. Yeah, and we actually did not have a breach either. We haven't had a breach in a very, very long time, and we've been fortunate. And it's because of that diligence of the data security team. They will take action, and we won't necessarily know why. But you know, it's because loose lips sink ships, right? You can't talk about what the incident is or what action you're taking about it, because you're giving potential bad actors information. Anybody else have a tale or a question? And again, as I do with every session that I give, I acknowledge Terry Michael and Mark Cesaro. You know, before each session, I do a lot of research. You know, I don't want to plug the Gartner Group, but I find their research to be the most complete, the most relevant. And so I always have to credit them. You know, sometimes their quotes, their research, their charts are in these. So let's keep the conversation going. That's my LinkedIn. And I just love to talk about analytics, data management, data governance. Please feel free to link up with me. And, you know, we'll keep this conversation going. I thank you for your participation. And, you know, if anybody has any questions, let me know. I might not have the answer, but I'll go find it for you. And with that, it is 6:03. Thank you all for participating, and go out and enjoy this gorgeous late spring evening. Take care all.